Hey everyone, what's going on? So, for the past couple of weeks or so, a bunch of people have been telling me to watch this movie called Hustle with Adam Sandler in it. And I do think it is a good movie, it's a decent movie, but there's a lot of esoteric knowledge things that are within this movie that most people would not realize. And that's what I talk about a lot on this channel, so I figured I would make a video showing some of these interesting things that I have found. So, if you've never watched the movie and you don't want me to spoil it, turn off the video now, go watch the movie, come back and watch it, and I think you will appreciate what I have to show here. But the whole point of the movie is basically Adam Sandler is trying to he finds this player named Bo Cruz in Spain, and he's trying to get him to play for the NBA, basically to kind of revive Adam Sandler's career and then also start a career for this guy named Bo Cruz. And he wants him to play for the 76ers, but at the very end of the movie, he ends up playing for the Boston Celtics, and they give him the number 22. And this sticks out a whole lot because within the movie, more than once, they make sure to let you know that you can't be drafted into the NBA unless you are 22 years or younger. And they also point out that this player, Bo Cruz, is 22 years old. And at the end of the film, you find out he gets number 22 and he gets drafted to the Boston Celtics, right? So he plays for the Boston Celtics. He wears the number 22. He's a 22-year-old. And if you know this language of gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words and phrases, if you write out Boston, it equals 22. And also the word basketball equals 22. And if you write out hustle, the name of the movie, it equals 22. Notice they also equal 85. Basketball 85, Boston 85, Hustle 85. The character's name is Bo Cruz, that equals 85. 32, just like Boston. Adam Sandler's character is Stanley Sugarman, who he also equals 85, right? 85, Bo Cruz 85, Hustle 85, Basketball, Boston, so on, right? All linked up. What are the odds the main character plays for the Boston Celtics at the end of the video or the movie, wearing the number 22, and he's 22 years old, basketball 22, Boston 22. This movie came out on June 3rd, the day after the NBA Finals began in the year 22 with the Boston Celtics. And just think about that. The movie started filming in the year 2020, so the Boston Celtics weren't in the NBA Finals. What are the odds that it would release when the Boston Celtics are in the NBA Finals? And just think about that. Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals in the year 22, Boston 22. This guy wears number 22. He's the 22-year-old, so on, right? It's just kind of like they do these things all of the time. Remember when Donald Trump supposedly won the election? Then a month later, they come out with a movie, the game show called The Wall with LeBron James. And then on the 48th day of the year, they released that movie called The Wall with Matt Damon. And then the movie called The Great Wall just a few months later. And Donald Trump runs on building the wall. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Just all types of these things happen over and over all throughout history. And it seems that nobody's really paying attention. Remember that that TV show on Netflix called 13 Reasons Why? And that final season, the first episode came out with a big old race riot, and that was right after the George Floyd stuff and all the race riots were going on. I mean, they started filming all of these things years in advance. So what are the odds that all of a sudden they would just be released when all these major events are going on? Like a race riot and, in the episodes, and then, George Floyd and the race riots going on. This movie, Hustle, with the Boston Celtics and the NBA. The Boston Celtics, and then the Boston Celtics are in the NBA Finals, all synced to the number 22. Not to mention you have Joe Biden, the president, whose code name is Celtic, and then you got the Celtics in there, and everything about the Celtics this year was synced up to Joe Biden. Even their 17th game of the season was on Joe Biden's birthday. And remember, Joe Biden gave that 17-minute speech about gun control on the game 1 of the NBA Finals where the Boston Celtics came back on a 17-0 run to beat the Golden State Warriors. And not to mention it's the 153rd day of the year, which is the 17th prime number, or triangular number. And, Boston has 17 championships. NBA and Gematria equals 17. Think about how basketball equals 22, and the Boston Celtics have the most championships right now, and Boston equals 22, and so on, right? It's all just perfectly just mapped out, right? The Boston Celtics supposed to be the best team ever in the NBA because NBA equals 17, and of course Boston equals 22 like basketball. But what else is interesting in this movie? For one, they put emphasis on this guy's tattoos within the movie too. And, he has all these tattoos on his right arm, and he eventually tells them that his right arm has all these tattoos for his daughter and his mom, and then his left arm doesn't have any tattoos on it because that's for his father. And basically he doesn't like his father or whatever, his father left or whatever it was. So he doesn't have any tattoos on his left arm, but on his right arm he has all these tattoos. And notice this big, pyramid with the all-seeing eye. It's like, what are the odds? These things have been hidden in movies for years, right? Pyramid, all-seeing eye, and everyone just thinks it's a joke. Now you got NBA players with it. I mean, it's still hidden, and nobody even questions or wonders why all the symbolism is going on. So he's got this pyramid with the all-seeing eye, but at the very end of the film, after he joins the Boston Celtics, he goes and talks to Adam Sandler's character, and he hugs him, and all of a sudden on his left arm, the arm for his father, he has this big oak tree tattooed on his arm, right? It says never back down because this is advice that Adam Sandler had gave him within the movie. But if you really think about this esoterically, this tree is very interesting when you think about Kabbalah, which is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the practice of coding numbers into words and phrases. I'm talking about Gematria, but Gematria is used within this Jewish mysticism, which is Kabbalah. Right? So within Kabbalah, there was Jewish mysticism, but there was also, they understand God by the tree of life. And the tree of life is interesting because the tree of life has 22 paths that you understand God with. And this is linked up to the Hebrew alphabet that uses 22 letters that all have a numerical value associated with them, right? So think about this. The Hebrew alphabet, each letter has a number value. Think about the Greek alphabet. Each letter has a number value. Think about Roman numerals, numbers and letters. And the English alphabet also is linked up this way. But, you've just never been taught all this stuff, right? But the 22 letters, and think about the 22 paths in Kabbalah to understand God. Think about how this guy's number 22. Think about how Boston equals 22. He's 22 years old. And think about how Adam Sandler is a Jewish man, right? Adam Sandler, Jewish. Think about the Hanukkah song. Think about the NBA and all of the Jewish people within the NBA. David Stern, Adam Silver, all these Jewish people within, the NBA. So it's very interesting to think about this tree that is tattooed on his arm. Sure, it signifies that Adam Sandler is kind of like a father figure and so on. But if you really think about it esoterically, it's very interesting when you look at all this 22 symbolism and then you think about the 22 paths on the tree of life and then, the 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabets. So then I decided to look up the Boston Celtics 22nd game of the season. And the Boston Celtics 22nd game of the season just so happened to be against the Philadelphia 76ers. And once again, go watch this movie. The whole movie is all about Adam Sandler working for the Philadelphia 76ers, trying to draft this player, Bo Cruz, to the Philadelphia 76ers, but he ends up going to the Boston Celtics at the end of the movie, right? So what are the odds on the 22nd game of the season of the Boston Celtics? They would play the 76ers, and Bo Cruz, the basketball player who portrays Bo Cruz in the movie is this, I don't know how you pronounce his name, Juancho Hernan Gomez, and he actually played with the Boston Celtics in the year 22, and then he got traded to the San Antonio Spurs, and then now he plays with the Utah Jazz. But what's interesting is that after he got traded away from the Boston Celtics, he played in 22 regular season games before the end of the season, even, right? So he got traded. Actually, he got traded when the Boston Celtics had a record of they had a record of 22-22, and then they played a game that day and they won, so they were 23-22, and then later that day he got traded to the San Antonio Spurs, and then whatever, plays 22 games the rest of the season. Now he's on the Utah Jazz. It's just craziness. And I decided to look up the Utah Jazz because I was kind of trying to look up this guy or whatever. And when I went to the Utah Jazz's ESPN yesterday, this was the top article they had. Utah Jazz, something to do with their changing their uniforms. And they got the number 22 on here. And it's like, why do they got the number 22 on here? If you look up, Utah Jazz currently doesn't even have a player that wears number 22. If you look up all their retired jerseys, they don't have a retired jersey of the number 22. And you're like, why did they use the number 22 on here? On ESPN, right? Maybe I'm missing something, but it doesn't seem to make that much sense that they would use the number 22. But, in Gematria, if you write out Utah, it just so happens to equal 22. Just like how basketball equals 22. So more than likely that's why they use that. But once again, maybe I'm missing something, but why in the world did they use the number 22 to advertise this article about them changing their jerseys? Like, literally, go look it up. None of their starters wear number 22. I don't even think any player on the Jazz right now wears number 22. And none of the retired jerseys are number 22. But then when they're showing this article about changing it, they use the number 22. And then Utah equals 22 and basketball's 22. I mean, I'm sure that's why that was used there. And look, these are all the retired people too. There are people who wore number 22. The last person to wear 22 was Jeff Green in the year 2020. I mean, I've heard of some of these players. Maybe some of these are, guarantee they're not retired numbers. It's like, but what really sticks out to me with this number 22 and this being an Adam Sandler movie, for years, clear back when I was in high school, I noticed this pattern, and all my friends told me, oh, you're crazy fucker, blah, 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 But I was watching Adam Sandler movies, and I noticed that, like, in the movie Billy Madison, the main girl is Veronica Vaughn, VV. And then Happy Gilmore was Vicky Valancourt, right? And then, I don't even know, it was Veronica Vaughn, Vicky Valancourt, or what am I, hold on. Can't even think of it. Billy Madison was Veronica Vaughn. Happy Gilmore was Virginia Vinet, and the golf movie, right? The Water Boy was Vicky Valancourt, and then later, I think it was in the year 2000 when Little Nicky came out, the main girl was Valerie Varan, right? And I started thinking, man, there's something crazy going on with Adam Sandler and the VVs, right? Even in the movie Big Daddy, the girl's name is Vanessa that works at Hooters. So I knew there was something with the letter V, right? But the letter V is the 22nd letter, right? So it's interesting, 22 and 22. And I know Zach has a ton of videos talking about the Golden State Warriors winning the finals, synced up to Pope Francis, and the Warriors and the Celtics playing on Pope Francis's birthday and so on. But if you follow what I've followed, I was following this narrative with the movie Teen Wolf, and it all linked up to this old narrative I had back in 2015 that involved Andrew Wiggins, who wears the number 22 for the Golden State Warriors, and how Andrew Wiggins in 2015 was a teen Minnesota Timberwolf, and that was the year that the Golden State Warriors went on to win the finals, and a whole lot more. Even actually back around that time when I was following this narrative, I was talking about my canceled ski trip, and how we were going to go to Breckenridge, and how I thought there was, I remember telling a bunch of people, like, maybe there's going to be an avalanche, because there's all these things synced up to the ski trip, and it eventually got canceled because of the money and so on. But now we got the Colorado Avalanche in the Stanley Cup Finals. It's like, what in the odds of this stuff? But It's just interesting, Clear back in, you know, high school, I noticed this pattern with Adam Sandler and VV people, the girls being in his movies, and V is the 22nd letter. So I think there's something important to Adam Sandler in the letter V and the number 22, and then this movie, Hustle equals 22, comes out in the year 22 when the Boston Celtics are in the finals. Boston equals 22, so. I've also talked a lot about Philadelphia in relation to the movie Happy Gilmore. If you go to my blog and my old videos and so on, and there's something connected to Philadelphia and the San Francisco area where the Golden State Warriors play. Even in the movie Happy Gilmore, he's wearing that Warriors jersey in the beginning of the movie. The hockey jersey, the Warriors jersey, right? And that was actually kind of linked into the 2015 narrative with the Warriors winning the NBA Finals, too. Also, so it's interesting that he would coach the Philadelphia 76ers in this movie, or, that he works for him and then eventually becomes the assistant coach. And in Happy Gilmore, for years I've been talking about this earthquake symbolism, how Philadelphia used to be the Warriors as well, right? The 76ers, or Philadelphia, not the 76ers, but Philadelphia used to be where the Warriors played, and then they moved to San Francisco or Oakland, and Oakland also equals 22, but now they play in San Francisco again. But I'm just interested, because although I know that they probably purposely coded this number 22 in the film, I also know that there was something with this knowledge that if you pay attention to patterns within your own life and pay attention to how it connects to these things, regardless of if people are manipulating it on purpose, you can understand things. And I've been showing this over and over and over. I was watching the date June 4th like crazy. I was watching it for Nelly, the rapper, and I was also watching it because of Bon Jovi. And then the Bon Jovi, whatever it was, the bassist died on June 4th. And then the lady in the Hot in Here Nelly video died on June 4th. I mean, just all by following patterns that existed, within my life and synchronicities and things, So regardless if there's an Illuminati and the Jesuits or whoever is purposely putting these things in movies and so on, because I really think that does go on. It's very obvious that they hide things in plain sight and so on, but, I was also meant to watch this movie on this day for a specific reason, and I understand this. But I just think there's something important, because I've been following some earthquake narrative again, and just think about Philadelphia and San Francisco. There's something definitely important to it. That movie in 2015 after the Warriors won, Adam Sandler had that movie called Pixels that came out, and a big thing was how on the cover it has Pac-Man eating San Francisco, but yet they never go to San Francisco in the movie. It doesn't make any sense. So I was like, why would they eat San Francisco, And there's also a scene where there's a bunch of black cubes, and on the movie Happy Gilmore, when he learns how to putt, the building that falls over has a big black cube on it, and it looks like the Comcast Center in Philadelphia that also has the black cube on it. And that black cube supposedly represents the New Jerusalem, which is important to the Third Temple, which is important to, the Jews and Kabbalah and so on, right? And I've been following a lot with this date, August 6th, and, this film, Hustle, came out 8 months and 6 days after that Juancho, the basketball player, after his birthday. So, like 86, and that's when Tisha B'Av begins this year. I don't know. There's definitely something important to it. And think about how he's a player from Spain, and I've been following this narrative with angels, and Los Angeles is Spanish for the angels, and there's definitely something interesting going on with this earthquake narrative, and I'm trying to piece it together, because a long time ago I also talked about how the numbers 22 and 86 seem to be, I see them together often, so it's interesting. It makes me think of the year 22 and the date August 6th, this day I've been following, so I need to look more into what's going on here, but Happy Gilmore. Chubbs, Carl Weathers, was also in that movie. And he gets, like, he's linked up. He's also Apollo Creed in the movie Rocky. And the movie Rocky's really important to this year because it's the Chinese Tiger year. And the word tiger equals 76. And Rocky, Sylvester Stallone's going to turn 76 on the date 7/6, a whole lot more. But, yeah, I think there's definitely something important to earthquake symbolism with this, you know. There's a whole bunch of earthquake symbolism with the 1989 World Series that I've blogged about in the last couple months too, and that was the 86th World Series. So we will see. I need to need to research a little bit more and look at some of my old stuff that I had blogged about and how it's connected. But Adam Sandler, very important to that. His birthday's even 9/9. Remember in Happy Gilmore, they tell him to. Shooter McGavin says to meet him on the 9th green at 9 and a bunch of stuff. So, but I will just end the video there. Hopefully it makes sense. Should be very simple, but have a good one. Peace.